Welcome to Land a House. A fairly new subscriber made a suggestion that I do an updated homestead tour, and I thought that was a pretty good idea. They wanted to see both just around the house here and a four-wheeler ride around the property, so let's do both. So let's just start here at the driveway. If you want to watch more on the house install, I have a 50-something part video series on how our modular home was put in, so that should be interesting. But the original lot that I purchased started about where this garden hose is, ran up the hill where the tree line is, and cut back in the woods there and around here, and came back to about where the telephone pole is. And it was a great purchase. I was able to get that for a very good price, and I just kept expanding the property from there. We have a total of 9.5 acres here. It goes back past the tiny house an acre, up this big hill over here, and then way down to the ponds, which we will take a tour down there in just a bit. And then I've later purchased the extra acreage up here that goes behind the house. And that was very important to me because I didn't want to have neighbors right here in the backyard. So let's begin the tour. This big opposing rock is our well water, and it runs here to the house, goes in by the power over here, which that was a fun video that I made about our power. I put this little Shelter Logic tent in as a temporary four-wheeler and lawnmower shed. I have big plans for a carport here eventually. So whenever we first put the house in, I did not own this land up top. If I had, we would have carried this hill back further and made it a more gradual slope, because as it is, it's really hard to get anything to grow back there. My mom just helped plant these hostas. They're looking okay. But as you can see, it's not much happening back here. Now the workshop has many videos on the channel, and I have really worked hard to get this thing built, and it is looking great in my opinion, which might be a little bit biased. If you want to watch some of those videos, they're under the workshop build series. I was given a whole lot of grief about building this retaining wall, but it is still doing quite well. It's got a metal roof on it, which I do one day intend on painting. One of the best things I did for this shop was install this solar panel with a fan. Pulls out all the hot air in the attic space of the workshop and keeps the moisture down. My plans for the front porch of the workshop is to have a metal roof covering here, probably just one sheet out, just enough to keep water and snow from getting to the door there. The ramp is doing amazing. I got a lot of grief on that one too, for not putting stairs in, but I like the ramp. I can roll a wheelbarrow right up there and unload stuff. Works out well. It's taken 2 years, but we finally have a good stand of grass here on our front yard. And then there's the garden space down there, which hopefully next year I will really get into and spend some time growing some food. Septic tank is here, runs down the hill, and we've got our drain lines. I forget, it's like 200 feet. They go off this way into the woods. Doing well. And our second drain field is down there if we ever had to use that. From this side of the house, the property continues up and around the road, which we will visit on the four-wheeler tour. But cutting across the road here into the woods is where the property continues, and we won't be able to take this way with the four-wheeler. So there's a property stake. Uh-oh. Rainstorm. To be continued. Well, that was a quick rain. My neighbor didn't even stop mowing his yard. So, I'm just gonna walk through here briefly because we won't be able to do this on the four-wheeler. But property line comes in here and actually goes back another 0.6 acres into the woods this way. We'll cut across the old property line here, which comes over to the tiny house. The tiny house was a young man's dream to live off-grid in the middle of the woods. And then I got married and all that changed. So this is the progress that I have made on the tiny house. We can go inside in just a minute and you can look around, but I made a slab, poured the blocks. It was quite an interesting project, and I will get back to it eventually. But it's to the point now where it's okay to sit in the weather and not be damaged or anything. But anyway, it's a pretty cool project. I had made this water tower that was supposedly going to feed me water from the creek and have the head pressure to supply a good bit of water. That's what's left over of my lumber pile. Let's go inside and check out this place. I made this door too because it's custom sized. So as you can see, it is basically just a storage building at this time. But this place is pretty well locked down. I have not had too much of an insect problem. The goal was to have this paneling on everything. Have a bathroom in there, have a kitchen space back here, and then just a small living area in here. And there was going to be a sleeping area up in the loft. So I have can lights that I put in, and this is actually the ladder that would go upstairs. And it would slide over, and then you could go up here. See if I can get you up there. Oh, yeah. But anyway, that was the space that was going to be the living quarters. And I think it was going to be quite a fun project. I was going to have to rework the composting toilet idea because it was having some issues. But I was going to have a little shower over in there. Kind of fun. But anyway, now it's just the storage building. And maybe in the future I will make it nice enough that Emma can have as a little playhouse. We'll just have to see. Leaving the tiny house and progressing this direction, there used to be a path here. How things change in a year or two. Let's see if I can get over here. Okay, so we'll walk down to the right here just a little bit so I can show you the idea of where that other, it's about an acre that goes off that way. Okay, so if we were to walk this way, this used to be an old road, but obviously is no longer in use now. So you may be able to see there's a marker right there. That was an old property line. So you can go back, so there's a tiny house right there. You would come back in there, maybe 200 to 300 feet. It would cut over and hits the creek and then comes back down in here. I don't remember the exact location of the marker, but this tree is about where it is here. We have several springs on the property. One is right here, but it's so low we can't really do anything with it. There's another one up here, right back in this little spot. Just trickles down here, but it's just a foot or so above that one. Can't do much. Now, one of the reasons I bought this property, one of the main reasons, besides price, was this creek over here. So this creek flows somewhere around 30 to 50 gallons a minute most of the year. And I've used this for ram pumps and watering the garden and all. But we'll head down here to the Flume in just a minute. I'll show you all of that. But here's the intake of my ram pump. Let's pulling in water here and going down to my bucket. This hill is quite steep, but there is a flag right here that goes up the hill. That's probably about a 300-foot distance there. And I can see, I don't know if you can, but right there is another flag. So it just shoots up into the woods there and cuts off towards the road. So that's the top edge of the property, and it is the highest point on the property as well. Let's head down here to the flume, and I will show you all of that. Over the past several years, I have run numerous experiments with the hydraulic ram pump, and that's why all of these pipes are laying here in the creek. The Flume Project was a fun one, but it's kind of died out. I had built this flume in hopes of generating a little bit of electricity, and I was going to send that up to the tiny house when I was living off-grid. But now it's just a fun water feature. This bucket goes to the ram pump, which follows this white pipe here. And that pipe goes up to the top of the hill by the house and supplies water to the garden. The ram pump is located right in there. So this is the hill that I was pointing to, where the property line goes up to the very top. And it is hard to judge here just looking down from the bottom, but the hill does go quite a good ways up there. So I'm going to take you right up here to the other side of the property. The property is kind of oval shaped, and so this would be the furthest away from the house, I believe. Now it's a little bit difficult to see, but there's an opening right here that I've kind of cleared away, and the property line comes straight through there, cuts across this gravel road, and then heads down in here. And let me see. Yeah, it's going to be difficult for me to climb down in there, but let's see, I don't know. I don't see the property stake yet, but it's somewhere right in here next to this big oak. So it heads down that way, so we'll go down in there in just a minute. I believe it's time for the four-wheeler portion of this tour around the homestead. So get this thing cranked up here. So the property is here on the right side of the road. It's kind of a triangular section up here at the top. Now you'll notice there's a flag right here. There's a little bitty portion just cuts off a few feet down in here that I don't own, and the fellow over here owns that. But it tapers back down to the road up here. I'm gonna take a pause from the four-wheeler for a minute. So we've just come down this long stretch, and right up here, I have kind of cut a tunnel into the woods, and this is the other farthest corner, or furthest corner of the property. And it cuts into the woods here. Man, there's spiders. Need to get me a spider stick. Ah, here's one right here. If you spend much time in the woods, you know about a spider stick. It just knocks the spider webs down for you. So the property cuts along the top here. My closest neighbors at the top are right over here. They've got a camper they visit. So we'll just take a little stroll this way. I've not spent a whole lot of time up here. Probably would have been a great place for a house up at the top if there had been water up here. Oh, well, I broke my spider stick. Well, there's a lot of poison ivy up here, so I'm not gonna take the trip down, but you can see right here in the middle my neighbor's little barn, and right goes straight down to the first pond. So we'll drive back around there and you can see where the pond is. Okay, we're back on the main road by the house. I'm gonna take you down the center road here. So there's not a whole lot of four-wheeler riding here, but it is quicker to get around. So there is a stake right here that is the kind of a weird triangular shape here of the property. It cuts off into the woods. Now earlier, whenever we were walking, I pointed off past the big oak tree, and that is right in there. So that's where the property cuts down from. Hits this stake, and then goes that way. So actually, we'll just walk this way just a bit. Here's a spring here. It's kind of a low flow. Let's see if it's even flowing at all. Not much of anything. So that stake will meet up with another boundary point that is right up here on this hill. And then from there, it cuts down to the first pond. So it's about, let's see, right there, and cuts down to the pond. So let's walk around and I'll show you that. The creek flows down this way, goes under the road here, comes out again right here, moves on down towards the ponds. Getting close to my other neighbor up here. So this hill over to the left is what we were on the top of earlier, looking down towards the ponds. So that's where we were in the woods. So this pond here, my property is on about 2 feet that way, and so it's not much of it. So, comes down this way, hits the pond, there's a stake by this tree, and heads up the hill. And that pretty well concludes the tour of the property. We've definitely been very blessed to have this much land out here. Now, as far as animals go, I'm not sure if I'm gonna have anything anytime soon. I've considered goats, which would be kind of fun. But I think garden is my real focus for next year. And depending on how finances go, my next building project will be a carport. I want to do one that's big enough to store at least one car, Ashley's car, and then I want to have a side room where I can store the lawnmower and four-wheeler and keep that locked up. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you've got questions, write those down below and maybe I'll be able to answer them for you. I'll see you next time. Bye.